Welcome to Elliot's Loft, where you'll find the studio, the place where When Black Men Talk is put together and distributed for the most part. I'm Mark Elliott, joined by one Dr. Marcy Baptiste, and she's going to be she's here for her and I to do another episode of Common Ground. Lady Marcy, how are you?
Fantastic, sir. As always, pleasure to be here.
Oh, I tell you, you know something? It's always good to have you here. It really is. I mean, some of our conversations are legendary. Um, I look forward to them. And I love conversations. And not only just conversations that basically just stir the pot a little bit, but it's provocative, but don't shy away from things that need to be said. And there's
Mm,
sometimes when that is said, it's like you're thinking that you're trying to say things that hurt somebody's feelings. No, there's no need in tap dancing when you're talking. And my intent is never to say something to anyone to hurt your feelings. It's not. But I'm not going to shy away and water stuff down because I'm going to think of your feelings either. And
mm,
I want to ask somebody to do that to me. Realistically, I never feel like you have to kind of water something down. If there's something meant for me to hear and it's going to be valuable to me, give it to me straight. Give it to me straight and allow me to use it as such. In this episode of Common Ground, I basically want to go into the form of couples that are together. I look and become bitter and sometimes move away from each other and bring a sense of bitterness. And sometimes they're together and they're bitter and they're isolated. And a lot of times when I think we hear the word bitter, we more associate that with women. But men are just as bitter, if not more bitter than women.
mm.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer in that. It's just that we don't necessarily show it in an emotional way that women do.
Mm-hmm.
But we carry, a lot of us carry a lot of bitterness from our past relationships, our past marriages, our childhood. We're carrying some things on. Usually it's stuff that has been unresolved, that has basically afflicted us, that's been unresolved. We haven't taken the time out to kind of really understand, work through, forgive ourselves for it, and of course, forgive others. And it kind of leads to that bitterness. So, and when you think of the word bitter itself in terms of a couple, what's the thought that comes to you, Lady Marcy?
Resentment and regret.
Hmm.
That's what comes to mind when I think of bitterness. Um, and I think the other thing that kind of comes to mind when I think about bitterness, I think about charging the wrong person for the crime. Uh, in other words, we'll stuff down some emotions and hide away some thoughts and some feelings, and then when we get into this new relationship, suddenly whatever the last five people did to us all comes out, and now we distrust this new individual, and they've given us really no reason to, but it's actually within us, and we don't want to hold the mirror up or shine a light on it, because at some point we're afraid that, oh, they're going to see that it's me, it's not them, and we don't want to own it. And I feel like we can't be charging the wrong person for crimes that they didn't commit. You can't charge your next for the sins of your ex.
Wow. I couldn't state that or say that any better than what you just said it because that is so true. So true. Because a lot of times you see individuals where they put themselves in a relationship or a marriage and they'll hang there when they know things aren't good
Mm-hmm.
and they're waiting for things to turn. Sometimes their minister tell them, "You just keep on praying and state God's gonna, God didn't put you there. He didn't put you there. You
Mm-hmm.
chose to be there. That wasn't a place for you to go, but you chose to be there." And they go to anyone that will basically make them feel what they're believing is okay. Just wait it out. They'll
Mm-hmm.
write They'll write Dear Abby. They'll send letters to this one. They'll call. They're trying to get the validation to feel when you already know in your instinct it's not right and something need to be done about it. And then when they, like you stated, when they move on from that situation, they will bring all that bitter and resentment with them. And like you said, they'll start with someone new that had nothing to do with all that. But this person's supposed to pay the price for all that.
Mm-hmm.
This person's supposed to pick up the tab, add a tip to it and pay the price. And they can't understand why this person's not doing so because, they didn't run up the tab. That's not a tab they ran up. And one thing I've noticed too that kind of causes bitterness is a lot of times we lower our standards with the people that we choose to become our partner. And the reality is, sometimes we take people off the clearance rack, meaning that we have a need to be with someone.
Mm-hmm.
And this person basically is not really what you desire, what you want, but you will just try to make this person, maybe if I just do this, if they come in and I could just kind of get them to, if I can just tinker with this, I can move this around, I can make this adjustment. They have potential. And to me, that's a awesome word to pay attention to because we start thinking they have potential. And you see the potential and you can see it in that person all day, but when they don't manifest and start to see it themselves or do anything about it, it doesn't matter. But you think you found the diamond in the rough that no one else saw nothing to do with. This person's been an idiot for a long time to other people, but you're going to find a way to straighten them out. And once you do that, you're going to have what you always desire and wanted. And when that doesn't happen, you spend all this time trying to get this person where you need them to be, and who they are when you met them, they are. I'm gonna talk about an aunt of mine. I'm gonna bring an aunt of mine. It's so interesting. Um, she she up in age. She decided to, at the time in her life, early late 30s, she decided to marry a gentleman that, for the most part, the family looked at with like clearance rack. Maybe not even the clearance rack. Maybe he wouldn't even make the clearance rack. Be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
So she decided, oh, I have something here. I have no one else can see what I see. You're welcome to it. They went on to have 3 children, and things didn't go well. So I remember um, years later, and when my mother took ill prior to passing, one Saturday, I'm in the room, my mother, and she comes in and starts talking, blah, 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 starts talking about her husband, her ex-husband at the time, but they were separated. He just da 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 da. And so, Auntie, wasn't he that way when you met him? When you met him? Well, no, 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 no. I said no. I think a lot of what I just heard you said, he was that when you met him. So
Mm-hmm.
what were you? So 20 years later, whatever. What were you expecting? What were you banking on? She danced around and she danced. She did the 2-step, the 4-step. She did a Chicago slide and everything. And she finally said to me, "I thought I could change him.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I can change him." There you go. You can't raise a grown man. You can't raise a grown woman. You just can't.
Mm-mm.
That's not your place. They're cooked. They can't. So either you accept what's there or adios. So a lot of times, again, basically lowering our standards, putting ourselves in a situation that we think that's going to basically we pull we keep pulling the slot machine. We're going to get 3 lemons at some point. Yeah, we got 2 last time, and those 3 lemons just don't come, Lady Marcy. Your reaction.
I watched a so you mentioned the potential. I was watching a Young Van Zant. This was several years ago, and she had an episode where I forget the details of the episode, but my takeaway from the episode was she asked the young lady on the show. She said, "Are you dating the person, the promise, or the penis?" And she said, "You got to be honest about that." And then she went on to explain what the difference was between them and how a lot of times we pursue these relationships for the wrong reasons. And so we're dating thinking we're going to get one type of response out of it, but we're going into it for all the wrong reasons. And so, you go into a relationship or you're in a relationship and you stay in it because, the sex is amazing. Her description of the promise was basically what you were saying about the potential. Or are you dating the person? And if you're dating the person, if this person never changes over the course of a lifetime, are you still going to be okay with it? And most of us can't honestly, if we're real honest about it, say that we're picking people that if they never changed, we would be okay with it. Most individuals are like your auntie, where we don't want to say it at the dinner table. We're not going to admit it unless you really hem us up in private. But most times we think that you don't necessarily even need to change all of them, but there are certain little things. If I could just tweak this and turn that and, put a gloss of paint over this, then they'll be perfect. It doesn't work that
Yeah.
way.
Mm-mm. No. No, no, absolutely not. It really doesn't. And we get caught up on it. And it's interesting, the word potential. Yeah. Because I think a lot of us gets lost with that. We get lost. We see what we believe to be potential. In reality, it's not potential at all. And another thing that kind of causes bitterness and feeling isolated and some resentment too is that a lot of times I think men. I'll speak for men. I see men kind of basically get a degree in this. They start to let a lot of things slide, meaning that there's things that are happening they don't like. They come to the point where I'm not going to say nothing about it.
Mm-hmm.
They just let it go. And then it just keeps piling on, piling on. Now, bitterness is starting to really build and fester, and
Mm-hmm.
resentment. Yeah, and they're pulling away, and they're starting to show their bitterness in other ways because they don't really want to open up and have the conversation. Or they feel like if they open up, it's going to be worthless. There's no need to. She's not going to understand. She's not going to try to hear me. She's not going to accept accountability. So they just kind of let it slide. And you're here. A lot of men say this. I don't want to argue. It doesn't have to be an argument,
Mm-hmm.
but they're already thinking ahead that's going to turn into one. There's no need for that to be an argument, but that'll be the worst. I don't like to argue. I'm like, hey, I ain't letting nothing slide because of fear of an argument. Sign me up for an argument, then I'll take it because because realistically, I'm not taking on the bitterness.
Right.
And I've been told no, I don't like confrontation. I don't like accepting bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. So you can look at it your way, I look at it my way, but I look at it where no, I'm not gonna allow this to pile up. So my idea is if I bring it to your attention, you have there's a couple of things you can do. You can ignore it, you can listen to it and see if it applies. But based on what you do, will tell me what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Your reaction.
That's that move accordingly. That's what I need to do. I need to move accordingly. Once I've communicated to you, what my needs are, whatever. And, I say that in the context of I'm being reasonable. Don't, some people just throw stuff out there and you're just like, man, nobody's signing up for that. Please stop talking to me. But if you're being truly reasonable and you go to your partner and you can sit down and calmly have these conversations about, this is how I'm feeling and these are the reasons why I'm feeling it. But most of us aren't even clear why we feel the way we feel. So trying to now communicate that to a partner, and then to do it in such a way that doesn't diminish them, doesn't blame them, doesn't, make how I feel someone else's problem, can be very difficult. And nobody teaches us how to have those really critical conversations. But that's what's required. And to your point, now, if I've done that and done it well, or I believe that I've done it well, and you still don't make any moves to make adjustments, I can take note of that. And then it's on me to move accordingly, but I don't get to keep complaining about it if I stick around and nothing changes. You might give them one or two tries, but at a certain point, you have to just kind of understand, like, okay, this person really isn't going to change. So I either need to adopt and adapt, or I need to move around.
It's interesting when you say that if they're not going to basically do anything that doesn't change and stop complaining. Oh, I love that. I had to say that to my brother on several occasions. He's no longer with us, but I had to say to him, after a period of time of complaining, okay, if you're going to accept it, just accept it. Then, you've vented enough. You've vented enough. So I'm assuming that you're going to accept it and things aren't going to change. And there's no need to really kind of keep having this conversation. And I've had friends the same thing. I had a buddy of mine I literally had to avoid because he's in situations where he just wants to complain about it all the time. It's like, boss, look. I remember one time we got together and I said, I'm gonna give you 5 minutes. 5 minutes. We're sitting, we went out for drinks. I'm gonna give you 5 minutes to say what you gotta say. After that, I don't want to hear nothing else about that. That's it. I've heard it all before. It's nothing new. It's the same stuff. You haven't acted on it. You've done nothing with it. So if you think I just want to sit here and just kind of listen to you, that's not who I am. So at some point you got to decide, okay, well, if you're going to accept it, that's okay. But to keep complaining about the same thing over and over and over again, no, it doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. So that I'm not going to give you an air to, just to kind of be there. And I'm there for you, and I will support you. But just me basically hearing you whine and complain, and you go back home to the same thing, I'm not doing you any good, and they're not doing myself any good. But another thing that basically kind of correls bitterness, and it kind of rolls into kind of letting things slide, because not saying urgent is the necessary word, but to me, if someone brings something to you that you're with and you care about this person and they say this is something that bothers me, there should be a sense of urgency to kind of work on it and to improve. There should be. This should not be a mode, well, that's just who I am, that's my personality. No. If it's causing, it's doing something that's bothering someone else, there should be somewhat of an urgency to say, you know what, let me do something about that. It's almost like if I'm saying a word that offends you, you bring it to my attention, and I go, you know what, I'm just used to saying it. You just got to listen to it. No, I should respect the fact that it offends you. I'm going to stop saying that. I may not say it, I may stop saying it around you and say it elsewhere, but I'm going to make sure that you don't hear it. And with that being said, I've been this way for a long time, Lady Morrison. I want to kind of share this because I've never, against the never, since I've been a younger man, and people that know me, I don't like people to use the word nigger around me. I just
Mm-hmm.
don't. I don't. And anyone that really tells, I've had people have conversations. I know, they'll catch themselves saying they'll stop it, and they said, they'll stop saying it because they realize I don't want to hear that. That's not a word that I want to hear in a conversation. I don't use the word. There's very few times when I think it's necessary that comes out of my mouth. So therefore, people that really know me and been around me for years, they know that's not a word he wants to hear. They're not going to use it, and that's what I'm saying. They respect the fact that that's not what I want to hear, and if they catch themselves using it around me, they will apologize for it.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's the urgency I'm speaking of. And most of these people, I'm not, ain't nothing. It's just people that I know. So I'm saying that if they were my partner, if they're basically on the outer edge with me, but if you're my partner and you don't take that type of urgency, what am I doing with you? What am I really doing? because it says in reality you don't care enough. You
Right.
really don't care enough. You don't respect. You feel what you're doing is much more important. And you don't really care how it registers here. And that may sound to some people like, well, it sounds petty, but it's not. Because to me, you should always take an urgency to make sure the person that you're with, that you chose to be with, that your heart is with, to make sure you're not doing things that's going to be detrimental towards them. Sorry if I got a little long, but sometimes that's how I am, Mars. So your reaction, sweet.
No, I was just gonna, because when that happens and they don't change, that is when the resentment starts to build up and the bitterness starts to build up. Like, at a certain point, you get tired of saying the same thing or having the same argument week after week, month after month, whatever the case may be. But at what point do we say, okay, they showed me who they are. They showed me where my value is. I told a client one time, we were talking about a relationship that he had and he was struggling with. And I said, she treats you she treats you how she thinks about you. So what are you upset about? You have the choice, stay in it or leave, but you don't get to stay in it and then keep complaining about it. Make a decision and act on it. And it was a whole bunch of different excuses and these types of things. And the incident that kind of really brought it to a head, she did something very disrespectful in public. And um, one of his things was relationships have always been high risk for me as far as related to his substance abuse. And so we were talking about the relationship aspect of it. And I said, you keep attracting the same type of people because you don't address what the real issues are. And then you let them treat you a certain type of way. And when they don't change, then you internalize things and eventually return to substance use because you're not getting your needs met. So now you'd rather than compromise or sacrifice or leave the relationship, you'd rather turn to drugs and alcohol.
Hmm.
And he kind of looked at me for the longest time, but I said at the end of the day, she treats you how she thinks about you. If a woman respects you and values you and can place you in a position of allowing you to lead the relationship and to, you know, demonstrate trust and empathy and all of those things, then she's not going to disrespect you. She's not going to mistreat you. None of those things are going to happen. And they're certainly not going to continue to happen even after you've expressed concern about it. So at the end of the day, it becomes up to us to move accordingly. People show you who they are. Don't try and change them. 2025 is my year of let them do what they want to do. So I know what they rather do than I have to make.
This this comes off the topic a little bit in a sense, but something I want us to address because I the situations you explained, I understand that why he may stay there. But I look at a lot of situations where things aren't correct, and for some reason, people just we kind of refuse to move away. And I remember when I got divorced years ago, and and I would have conversations, and people were I'm gonna say people, more women were surprised that I left, and they said to me the reason why they were surprised because the man usually never leaves. He never leaves. So to me, when I hear that, if she believes you're not going anywhere, regardless of what she's doing, she's taking you for granted.
Mm-hmm.
So she's already thinking that, okay, no matter if I don't have to show up, I could do whatever I want. He'll talk, he'll complain, but he's not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to me, I believe, is the underline of that. because a lot of times that is the reality. He's not going anywhere. Now, he may cheat, he may do whatever, but in reality, they believe in some cases he's not going anywhere. I want to get your reaction to it because I think that plays a lot of role, plays a big part because we've talked with another show where I've said gentlemen have said to you that when they've gotten married, sometimes the women change, and part of the reason again that happens because once they get to the finish line, I call it, of you saying I do, they realize now it's not easy for you to leave. You got to go through these steps to leave. So I got time to basically disrespect you, take you for granted before you move into that line to leave, and you may never get there. So I don't have to take this serious. I don't have to kind of do those things because the piece of paper that we both signed to says, you're going to be here. And it may sound devious, but it's more true than you believe.
No, I feel like that is the case, and that a lot of times, what's the old adage? It's cheaper to keep her. And so I
Hmm.
think that's why guys don't say they don't leave, especially in the case of marriage. If there's a lot of assets involved or, custody issues involved and things like that, sometimes this is a decision is, this is a better investment to just wait it out versus to go ahead and pull the plug. So, we're weighing risk versus reward and other things like that. And I think we've talked before about how sometimes I think men just don't want to be the bad guy. I don't want to be the one who broke her heart. But if I can push enough buttons to where she'll leave me, then I don't have to be the bad guy and I get out of the relationship. So I think some of that happens sometimes too.
Yeah, ironically, I understand the part about it's cheaper to keep her, and I get that. But I'm going to say this is the thing to me that it's like on a seesaw when I hear that. It's cheaper to keep her. And the other side is this. There's two things in life that you're probably never going to have enough of, but you can get more of one, and one you can't really get more of: time and money.
Hmm.
So you're wasting time being in a situation you're not happy in or being productive with. So yeah, it's cheaper to keep her, but if you leave, you're going to pay something. But if you're productive, you can get more money. You can earn more money. You can't earn more time. You can't.
I think a lot of times too, especially when children are involved, I feel like the court systems are really kind of geared against the dads in a lot of instances. And so I think that there's some fear also of, I don't want to leave because, I don't want to lose my kids. I don't want to lose access to my kids. And some moms will use that as tools of manipulation and they'll take full advantage of that. And they know, like, oh, he's not going to go anywhere because he doesn't want to be without his kids. And, I can play XYZ card. And so it's not necessarily the financial piece of it, but it is also the access to the children.
You know what's interesting about that? And I'm not saying there's not some validity to that, because there is, that the court system favors, to a degree, the mother. But the fear of dealing with it is not worth it. Because I will say this, I've seen this over the years. There's been a lot of men take full custody of their children.
Mm-hmm.
Full, not semi, full. Because they weren't afraid, they weren't being manipulated, and they went anyway. And a lot of time, as men in those situations, they stare back and they're paralyzed, like, well, if I go to no, go, at least try. I'm sorry, at least try. Make the court system decide.
Right.
Don't claim to lose before you even try. But I will say this on the flip side of the coin: a lot of men don't want that responsibility of raising their kids anyway.
Mm, true.
So they're going to use that as an excuse when they really don't want it. they'll buckle down and bow down to that. Well, then no, you don't want the full responsibility. You don't want the part-time responsibility. So to stay in, you do less with your children because if you really want it, don't walk in defeat. Go get it done. Go get it done. Go get it done. At least apply. Because yes, the court might be slighted, but if you present it in a way, you may not get full, but you can get joint, and that way she's gonna have to do just as much as you. But to
Hmm.
stand back and not walk through that door, bruh, I that you walk you're basically swimming in fear, and nothing's going to get accomplished if you're swimming in fear. So I've heard that before, and that's how I kind of look at that, man. These are your kids. Don't be manipulated. Don't be bullied. These are your kids just as much as they're hers.
But I think that's
Nothing
why
should give her.
oh, I'm sorry. I think that's why
No, you
women
go
were
ahead.
surprised. Why women were surprised when you left, because a lot of guys don't, and so that is they're like, oh, they're not afraid. He wasn't afraid. I don't know. I feel like just different conversations I've had with women who are in the midst of divorce or in certain types of situations with their relationships where everyone in the whole ecosystem knows that the relationship is over, and everybody's like, man, somebody just call it, cut bait, let's go. And she's like, I'm not gonna do it, he's gonna have to do it because he's gonna have to pay me, or I already told him if he divorces me he's not gonna see his kids, and it's this whole back and forth, and it's just so unhealthy. But I think that's why they're surprised, because they're used to the manipulation working. Again, we're talking about unhealed and unhealthy healthy dynamics, but there's a lot of those out there.
There's another aspect I want to bring to the conversation because this is a word to me. Sometimes it's over. I feel like it's overused, but it's important. It has its importance, and that's support. And a lot of times, one party may feel that the relationship is not supporting them in a sense. And I know for a period of time, men have complained, well, she doesn't support me, blah, 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 blah. And I've never liked that too much. And I'm not saying that the man in the relationship should not have some support. I'm not saying that. But to me, support should be a compliment. It should not be what's needed for you to blossom and grow. It's this, it's almost like the sprinkles to an ice cream. You got to have
Mhm.
your own ice cream. You got to have your own ice cream. You got to have your own flavor. You got to be doing your own thing. And if she decides to put sprinkles on it and help you out, that's great. Now, you want to have someone do that. Granted, I understand, but if she doesn't envision your dream, she that can understand your dream still got to be your dream anyway, with her or without her. So to complain to me that she doesn't support, mm-mm. Because I've done things in life, I never look for support. I just don't. If it comes, oh well, great, cheers. But I'm not looking for it because I don't really need it. It's not going to make me or break me either way. Would it be beneficial? Absolutely. But to make it out to be one of the absolute factors that I must have, no, no, not really. Because
Well,
if you're self motivated, it's nice if it comes, but if it doesn't come, que sera, sera. Where did I get that one from? I'm sorry. Your response, Lady Boston.
and this week to bring up one of these old phrases or old terms. Que sera, que sera. Um, I forgot what I was saying. Oh, I was gonna say that I think there's a fine line though also between um not supporting and ones who try and disrupt or discourage,
Ooh.
because there are women who will, what's the old saying, you want a busy man or do you want a broke man? And
Mm.
sometimes we say that we want, certain types of lifestyle. We want certain types of, things in our relationship and a certain kind of house and all these things. And not being realistic about what it's going to take to amass. those assets and to live that type of a lifestyle. So then you have this man that's out there trying to make it happen. And now what you really wanted was time and attention, but you also still want the material things. But then I need you to be home and you don't pay attention to me and you don't pay attention to kids. So now I'm going to act out so that I can get your attention. And so I feel like sometimes women can be detractors to a man's success. And so sometimes I wonder if when they say she doesn't support me, what the language really or the conversation really should probably pivot to is she's trying to inhibit my success, or she's, she doesn't like me. Oh, I don't like you around all those women. I don't want you talking. Well, that's part of my job. So do you want me to not work so that you can feel more secure? So I can coddle your insecurities? But don't want to have those conversations.
Bingo! 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 You're right. You're absolutely right. Be distracted. You're right. They may not support, but they can find try to find a way to get in the way. Put stumbling blocks there. And I mean that is so dead on. My goodness. And it's the truth because a level of insecurity can definitely kind of get in the way and basically make things difficult. And
Right.
even if it's not based on women, it's just the mere fact that, like you spoke earlier, that you're spending less time doing some things that they perceive you should be doing, and they
Mm-hmm.
want to they want to monopolize your time and what you're doing to an extent to where you can't really do the things that you need to do to blossom and grow. So that is like the flip side of it in reality, because yeah, that happens, and it's this. I'll say this: part of the reason why I love our conversations because a lot of time women aren't as real as you. They aren't. They know what you're saying, but they won't voice it like you, Lady Marcy. They won't voice it. Maybe to other women, but they're afraid. It's like it's a close agreement that they have. It's like a bond they have to where don't let that out. And it's and it's refreshing.
So
Realistically, I'm here to
I'm
tell you.
girl code.
Yes, I mean, and it is, don't get me wrong, men have codes too. I don't believe in it, but it's refreshing to have conversation where sometimes you get in conversations with people and they want to fight the obvious. The sky is blue, but they want to fight it. No, it's a different shade of red. No, it's blue. It's not red. It's blue. But they want to spend more time trying to fight what's obvious. It's simple. Obvious is not to be missed. It's right in front of you. You're banging into it. It's there. But they want to spend more time to fight that than to kind of understand, no, if we just see things where they are, just really for what they are, and found that common bond to what things are, instead of being selfish, I think things would be a lot easier. I don't think I know they would.
Yeah.
I just know it. Yeah. I just know they would. And it's
I
amazing. Like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, I'm done. I'm done. I'll stand down. Please continue.
Said I'll stand down.
Hmm.
Um, no, I mean, part of it I think is my job, as a counselor and things like that, and doing trauma recovery work and stuff like that, where I'm forced to kind of position my clients to go and face some of those ugly truths. I'm like, do you want to live an ugly truth, or would you rather live free and live in a lie? Like, at the end of the day, the lie is not really you living free. You're still trapped. And so I think that's where my perspective, and I had to take myself down that path. When my healing journey started as a result of domestic violence, I started because I had to look at myself in the mirror, all face black and blue and patches of hair torn out and all the whole 9 yards, and say, how did I get here? And when I was really able to take an honest look in that mirror that night, I had to say, I'm the common denominator, which means I'm part of the problem. And that's a hard pill to swallow. in a moment like that where, it's very easy to allow yourself to slide into a victim mentality and a victim um, positioning. But if I wanted to make sure that that never happened to me again, I couldn't afford, it was too costly to allow myself to be a victim. So I had to face that ugly truth and say I'm the common denominator and figure out, why do I make the choices that I make? And that's where I learned a lot of, what was causing me pain was merely my choices and my refusal to acknowledge that I'm picking things based on, outdated mindsets and abandonment issues and all kinds of other stuff, that it really had nothing to do with the relationship. I wasn't even putting any thought into the relationship I was choosing. It was more like, does this feel good, and does this person like me too? And then you find out that people like you, but they like you for different reasons. And maybe sometimes it's really not that they like you, but they like what you do for them, or it likes how, their connection to you positions them, or for a variety of other reasons. But if we're not even willing to acknowledge those things, then how do we get to a position of wholeness? And until we can get whole and healed, then it's going to be difficult to be part of a whole and healed relationship. There's always going to be a fracture in it.
Yeah. Now, I want to go back to something you said. When you said you stopped and you look at the role you play. Now, a lot of times we're sitting around waiting for someone to tell us that. We're waiting. We like for someone to give us instructions. So when things don't work out well, we could blame someone. But if I'm hearing you correctly, you thought this on your own. No one came to you and said, "Hey, you need to think about the role you play in this. You need to understand why these decisions are happening for you." And I want to go back to that because there had to be, if I'm on this, if I'm on the right path, no
Mm-hmm.
one push you to the side and say that to you. How did you get there? That's what I want to know. How did you get to that point right there?
Being held hostage and being beaten half to death. Like, literally, it was one of those situations where I was forced into change. Change was not my first choice. Doing things as I'd always done them was going to cost me my life if I didn't make some adjustments. I just didn't really know at that moment. I didn't know how, but I knew that the one thing that I knew for sure in that mirror, this is hours after the abuse, the assault, attack, whatever you want to call it. The one thing that I knew in that mirror was I was the common denominator. And I couldn't steer away from that, because each relationship I got in got progressively more dangerous in one way or another. So we went through, a narcissistic relationship. So there was a lot of psychological and emotional abuse. And then we move into um, the relationship that ended in physical violence that also had a number of different red flags, manipulation, control, all kinds of stuff. And then when I looked back at the relationships, and I said, every single one of them, with the exception of my marriage, also involved heavy alcohol use, substance abuse. And that same substance abuse was what led into me being molested when I was younger. And so that, I didn't hold myself, responsible for that. But once I started clicking those things together, I realized that if I'm the common denominator, because at this point, beyond the molestation, the relationships I'm choosing these partners. And so I think you said it earlier, we get into these relationships, and like, how whatever we think of them at some point at the exit of the relationship, they were the same person typically that we entered into it with. But we've shifted, we've changed, our needs changed, we see something different, whatever the case. Maybe we took the rose colored glasses off. And for me, being the common denominator meant I'm part of the problem, but I'm also part of the solution. Now what? And that's where I was kind of stuck, was the now what? I don't know how to get out of this. And then that's when I sought professional help.
Now, prior to the abuse, I'm going to just go prior to then. Did you look at yourself as the common denominator?
No,
Okay.
heck no.
Okay.
I didn't even look at the relationships as toxic. I knew that the one with the narcissist had left me very, very depleted. Um, I mean, I had always, throughout the majority of my life, struggled with self esteem and things like that due to my weight, due to acne, all kinds of stuff, different whole show. But I never perceived that the relationships were bad for me. And I never perceived that I could have predicted until I really started learning what some of the dating red flags and things like that. That's why I teach classes about that kind of stuff, because those are the things that stop us and allow us to disqualify relationships before anything bad happens. But absolutely not. I didn't consider myself a common denominator. I didn't consider the relationships all toxic. I didn't think about them. I just moved through the relationships. And if it was fun and is exciting and exhilarating and the sex was great and all of these kind of things, if that was all popping, I didn't stop to think. And so that's why I say, like, that day, that incident really changed my life. And I was forced to look, literally and figuratively, look at myself in the mirror, hold my choices up to the spotlight, and say, if I hold this up to the light, what do I see? I see me either keep making the same choices or figure out, how do I stop this before I end up dead. So, I mean, if that's your only choice, is life or death, I'm going to go down the path that looks like it's going to lead me to life. But it wasn't easy getting there, because I had to admit a lot of stuff about myself. I had to really dig up a lot of complex trauma and unpack a lot of that stuff and figure out, okay, where now that I have this information, what the hell do I do with it? What is it good for? And so now I tell clients all the time, our past isn't giving us permission for our future, but going back there and figuring out the lessons that were to be learned there, or that we can learn from mistakes, gives us that benefit of hindsight 2020, and take that information, use the data. Don't pull the emotions with you, but take the data with you and use that and apply that in your future. And then that's what you build your future off of, is the data, not the pain.
Uh, it's much easier to take the victim role as a common denominator role. Yeah, it's just we gravitate towards what's comfortable and of course what's easy, and the victim role will always feel better because it allows you to take no responsibility, to assume no responsibility. And yeah, that's when I hear that, and I kind of see other things. That's what kind of we kind of fall into the easiness, the comfortability. It's not hard, and a lot of times we're afraid of hard. If something's hard, nah, I don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
We want the easy. We want the yeah. It's got to be. Oh, if you listen to when they sell you something, this was so easy. The first they want to say to you, because they know that's going to pinpoint and register in your brain, your mind. Easy, the word easy. If they tell you it's going to be hard, you're going to run away from it. And we tend to run away from hard, like hard is impossible, and hard is not impossible,
Mm-hmm.
but we run away from it. I want to ask this question because this is something that's truly big too when it comes down to bitterness, that leads to bitterness in a sense. And I want to start it here because which I think men and women look at respect differently. And I think it means different things to the different sex. For men, respect means a lot. It does. It just we really, absorb. It's like we're like a sponge when it comes to respect. We absorb it. We really do. And one thing that I have noticed over the years, and I think it's commonplace now, the way a woman talks to a man shows respect or non-respect.
Mm-hmm.
And a woman believes that she can basically talk to him any type of way and go back and forth and blah blah blah. That's not respect. It's not. And it's like she feel like she's standing toe to toe. But again, if you love someone, why are you exhibiting that type of disrespect? It's just not. I could say something to you and try to find ways to say it to you that would not be disrespectful to you.
Mm-hmm.
Tone of voice, inflection, a lot of different things. So, therefore, again, as men, we pick up on disrespect easily, quickly. We may not say anything. We may not say anything. We may not say to you, point, hey, that you're being disrespectful, but we feel it. Our mind registers, so it
Mm-hmm.
gets written, it gets written down. And I will allow you, I'm not going to lie. I want you to speak on how women absorb respect. But I think for a man, I don't think I know, it's one of the primary things we need from our partner to feel respected, to feel respected. And a lot of times, the word love gets thrown out there. And love is great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you don't want to feel, the effect of love, how love feels, but a man wants to feel respected.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll throw out an example. I'm making this up in my mind. It's like, let's say if he basically tried to fix something and he's not capable of fixing it, and she just comes in, you can't do blah 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 blah. Blah, blah, blah. That's it. That's it right there. That right there. And again, he may not even echo a word, but he's feeling that way.
Mm-hmm.
Over a period of time, that really runs into bitterness. So again, what when it comes to women, what do they deem respectful or being respect is, or
I feel
disrespect for that matter? Hmm.
I feel like a lot of times women sort of mix up treatment and respect, and they focus more on how they're treated versus whether or not they're really being respected. Because you can be treated just fine in most aspects of the word and him still be very disrespectful. So, behaviors, let's say we're out in public somewhere. He never raises his voice to me. He never curses at me. He never, has put a hand on me. None of those types of things. So I'm safe in all those aspects. But he'll go talk to other women in front of me, make me feel some type of way, or he'll make cracks about me, say things about me to his friends, maybe when I walk in or out of a room, or he'll behave in certain ways outside of my presence. I always say, don't have me looking stupid in the streets, because I feel like a lot of times men can do things outside of the home that have women being disrespected and we just don't know it. Um, And so sometimes we feel like, oh, well, I'm treated well, the bills are paid, the house is nice, all of those things. And we're not looking for these, subtle types of disrespect where everybody's looking for the blatant disrespect. And it doesn't always look that way. And I think so a lot of times for women, they're really focusing on those blatant forms of disrespect, cursing at me or, you know, visual forms of disrespect. And they're not looking at what does he say to his friends about me? If somebody says something that is discourteous to me, is he going to, stand up for me and have my back? Those things show, I think, respect in a lot of ways. I'll use the example of um, Serena Williams when she did the Super Bowl. And there was a lot of flack about, her crip walking or whatever. And I think it was Stephen A. Smith made some smart ass remark and talking about, if she was my wife, this, that, and the third. And her husband came right to her aid publicly and said, nah, bruh, I got this. Don't worry about what's going on over here. I think those are those subtle signs of respect where that's showing that I'm being respected. Just because you pay bills and you don't call me names doesn't mean I'm being respected. I can be disrespected in a multitude of ways, but if we're not looking at those subtle signs, then sometimes we miss that. And I think so we get twisted up between treatment and what actually are we being respected.
Common ground is what we do here from time to time. It's a new, not a new, it's a segment that has evolved on When Black Men Talk. I'm happy that we spend time basically taking different things from relationship between men and women and kind of delving into it and pulling back some of the layers and having conversation about it. Some of it is pretty, a lot of it's not, but we could all do better. We could all do better. I want to thank Lady Marcy, Dr. Marcy Bertice, for coming through again and spending time with us. I don't know how you do it, but you do it every time. How do you do it? How do you do it?
How do I do it? It's my pleasure.
Yes.
It's my pleasure. I mean, how do I do it?
How do you bring so much insight? That's what I should have said. I said that incorrectly. So
Oh,
how do you do
I don't know. I guess I'm just amazing. That's all.
it? Just that you are. That you are. I agree with that 1,000%. I'm glad
I
that you are, and I'm
good
looking
conversation.
forward to you being. I'm sorry.
I said no. I just love good conversation. I love good dialogue, and one of the things that I always appreciate about coming on here is you always challenge me to really kind of think about, okay, how do I really think about that? How do I? And a few times you've stumped me where I'm like, ooh, I don't know. I never really thought about that. And I love that. I embrace that. It allows me to grow and expand my thinking. So I appreciate it.
Oh, you're more than welcome, and I'm looking forward to us doing many more of these shows because I love it. I love what you bring. I love the enlightenments of it. I love the conversation, what is being shared, what is being said. To me, all that's priceless. So we'll get together and do another one soon. In the meantime, folks, thank you for giving us an air. You take care of yourself. Keep God first. God loves you, and we do too.